For reasons that have not been adequately explained to me, the YouTube atheist community... Sorry. Every time I say the word community, I throw up in my mouth a little bit. The vloggers of the atheist genre here on YouTube have a strange preoccupation with talking about transgenderism. So much so that this has caused significant division amongst them. Essence of Thought has been bullying women to self-harm in defense of trans rights. Noel Plum and Anti-Ordinary have been taking up arms against him. I'm pretty sure this chick got kicked out of atheism for being transphobic, but then she apologized, so we let her back in. And I think one or more diss tracks might have been made.
Look, rats, where are you at? Don't see you nowhere and you're not coming back. Yes, I am the trap. Yes, I have the map. Yes, I'll fuck your life up and I won't look back. Yeah.
Hot fire. Now, there is a relevant political issue buried within all of this e-drama, so I'm going to try to separate that from the internet personalities involved. Let's see how well I stick to that. The topic we're going to be exploring is trans women in sport, and where they should be categorized. Trans activists seem largely in favor of categorizing trans women as women for the purpose of sport, because that would further reinforce the notion that trans women are women. Opponents to this will argue that trans women are not biologically female. As biological males, trans females would, on average, have greater bone density, more muscle mass, more hemoglobin in the blood, be taller, and several other factors that would be relevant to competitive sport. As such, they should not be competing against biological females. I disagree with both of these perspectives, because they start from the position that there should be segregation on the grounds of sex or gender. Why do we, and why have we, historically, segregated sport on the basis of sex? Well, those reasons I just gave not 30 seconds ago. Being male is correlated with having greater amounts of muscle, bone, and blood, which is relevant to sport. Right. The relationship is correlative. It's indirect. There's a statistical relationship between sex and the factors relevant to sport aptitude, but sex itself is not one of those factors. So why are we screening based on the factors that indirectly matter, as opposed to the factors that directly matter? This is a historical breakdown of the racial demographics of NBA players. Seeing this, one might come to the conclusion that being black is related to one or more factors that are relevant to basketball aptitude. Yet no one is saying this is unfair to whites, or that there should be a no blacks allowed basketball league.
Basketball? That brings me back some memories. I used to be quite the baller in my day.
Pierce, you were once a pro b-baller?
Lightfoot Luther. That's what they used to call me. I was quite the Aryan stallion on the court. But when the filthy 60s came and desegregated the league, I hung up my shoes forever in disgust. Sharing shower rooms with ape men? What will the Jew think of next? Sodomites in the military?
Okay, some people want that. But their motivation is not to minimize the performance discrepancy between competitors. Their motivation is to ensure representation of, or to carve out a niche for, their preferred demographic. So, is that your justification for sex segregation? Because women tend to be ill-equipped to compete against men in sport, in order to ensure female representation, we ought to extend to them beneficial discrimination. Consider a female of above-average physicality, such that she is more in line with the competitive aptitude of the average male athlete as opposed to that of the average female athlete. Should she be competing against people she is more closely in line with performance-wise, or people she is more closely in line with reproductive-wise? Demographic representation is a non-issue for me. My priority as a viewer is to ensure competition be as close as possible, because that's what maximizes my viewing enjoyment. Artificial selection only interferes with the maximization of my goal. But maybe that's not your goal. Maybe female representation is your goal. Maybe trans representation is your goal. In which case, you may be protective of women's sport, even though it is necessarily discriminatory against men, but still want trans women to be included, even though that undermines the point of the initial segregation, because trans women perform relatively well in that space. Then, when you're challenged on this blatant hypocrisy, you use the age-old tactic of blatant hypocrites and call your detractors phobes and isms in an attempt to brute force the social acceptability of your preferred bigotry. But it's not bigotry. You have a right to this space. The UN says so. Besides, you have historical injustices that you want reconciled against you and your kind. Never mind that your proposed solution reinforces the base premises that your perceived injustices rely on. But no one's buying your shit on this one, and you deserve all the blowback you've received. Hypothetically, of course.